It's a go. All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order of the Merrillville Redevelopment Commission in a workshop at 5:05 p.m. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Councilman Pettit.
Here.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards. Councilwoman Uzelak. Councilwoman Hardaway is here. And Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Here.
We have 3 members. We'll do the consent agenda at the official meeting at 6 o'clock. Under old business, we have with us representatives from what I consider BP or Light Source BP. This, ladies, is to bring you folks, the new members of the RDC, up to speed. Angie and Joanne and I have been working on this, as well as Joe as the BZA attorney. Last year, Light Source BP filed a use variance for 2 large tracts of land. In fact, they actually had 3 large tracts of land, and they were kind enough, and I guess read the writing on the wall, to remove one of the parcels at 97th and Grand Boulevard, which we refer to as the Hearing Farm. And so they have both sides of Colorado that they have entered into leases with the property owners, and they want to come make a presentation to the Redevelopment Commission. They've been granted the use variance. They're doing their due diligence, and they want to talk to us as a group, I guess possibly moving the project forward, any incentives, that sort of thing. So I will turn it over to Jackie and Jake.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Pettit. It's very nice to be back. And I wanted to share that we have successfully taught everyone at Light Source BP how to spell Merrillville. Many of them got it wrong, but after a year or so of working with you, they're finally getting it. So I'm excited about that. We do have a little presentation today that we can run through just to start, but want to keep it casual. So if you have any questions, feel free to just jump in and interrupt us. I'll start, and then I'll kind of hand it over to Jake. I'm Jackie Kitchen. I'm the Senior Director of Development for our Eastern and Midwest region at Light Source BP. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our company. Some of you have heard it before, but I also wanted to provide an opportunity to share a little information with the new council members. So Light Source BP is a global company. We were originally founded in 2010 in the UK. We started doing utility solars there, notably a couple of projects where we supported local utilities in supporting their green energy initiatives. And then in 2017, BP took interest in what we were doing in the UK area and took out a 50% share joint venture in Light Source, and we became Light Source BP. And at that time, we moved into the United States in 2017. And we now have over 30 gigawatts of projects in our pipeline, with about 4.1 gigawatts of that actually contracted and 3.2 in construction. Gigawatts is a really big number. Basically, to put it into perspective, the project here in Merrillville is around, it's under 100 megawatts. So it's like a very small fraction of our overall pipeline. But projects typically are, vary in size anywhere from 50 to 200 megawatts. So the project here in Merrillville is kind of a small to medium-sized project. But as you can see, we have quite a few assets throughout the Midwest, quite a few projects in operation. And this is a little bit of information about who buys the power from us. So we have sort of a mix. We have a lot of corporate off-takers, faces or names that you know, like Verizon, Amazon, McDonald's, that purchase power from us through virtual power purchase agreements. They do this for a couple of reasons. 1, so that they can lock in their pricing on their power for years to come. And 2, so that they can meet their greening initiatives and make sure that their portfolio is more carbon neutral. And then we also sell and partner with a lot of utilities throughout the country. You see a couple of them listed here. Many states, as you know, have created goals around decarbonizing their grid and bringing renewable energy into their energy mix. And those are many of our partners in purchasing power. So a little bit about our company overall. At Light Source BP, we really strive to be best in class when it comes to developing energy projects like this. And we pair that with social responsibility, being responsible, good partners to the communities that we're in, and involves also environmental stewardship. And a little bit more about that. So on the environmental stewardship side, we really strive to ensure that our projects are an environmentally beneficial piece to the community. So when you put a solar project on a piece of ground, it gives that piece of ground an opportunity to rest and for the soil to regain health that it might have lost through prior uses, such as intensive farming or things along those lines. And basically, the land sits and is very lightly used during the solar period, which is around 35 years. And at the end of the project, our goal is to show that the soil health has improved and that biodiversity around our projects has improved. We also take pride in improving circularity. We've made commitments to recycle all of our solar panel materials and reuse panels where we can. Our goal in that is to measure and reduce our overall waste footprint in the industry. And then sort of on an internal speaking side, we have DEI incorporated in our hiring practices and in our internal mission. And we also have perspective and sort of rights around, or, procurement plans that respect human rights and make sure that our supply chains are properly due diligenced and ensuring that all of our panels come through equitable and fair labor. And then, of course, we invest in local communities. That's sort of our favorite part, Jake and I, of the job, is that these projects are good long-term partners for the communities that we're in. Not only do we provide sustainable, clean energy that goes right into the local grid and into the power system, but we also provide local jobs. Most of those are during construction, and then we also provide jobs during operation. Jake's going to talk a little more about that. And then my most favorite thing, being a former local government official, is the amount of property tax that we provide. We pay significant property tax, and Jake will go into that more as well. And then we also provide revenue for our local landowners. The way that we do business, our business model is that we lease the land in most situations rather than purchase. So that means that the land continues to be locally owned by local folks here. And then we also participate in partnerships and philanthropic commitments in the local communities we are in. We like to join chambers, sponsor fairs, sponsor events, make sure that we're sort of being a part of the communities where our projects live. And so with that, I want to hand it over to Jake. Jake is the project developer for this project and has all of the details, and he's going to share some updates with you all.
Thank you, Jackie. So, as Jackie mentioned, I'm development manager for this project and a few others. Solar Power 101, I know it's been a while since we were all in a science class in high school, so just give you a little breakdown. So this is called an in front of the meter project, so we're not providing power directly to any particular business or manufacturer or anything like that. So the sun hits our solar panels, sends electrons to an inverter that goes to a transformer, and from there it goes to the grid where it intermingles with power from every other source. So power from coal, wind, hydro, you name it. So it just gets put into the stream. From there, it gets used by all of us at home, here at Town Hall, et cetera. So we're not, as Jackie showed that previous slide with companies that purchase power from us, we're not sending power directly to an Amazon, fulfillment center or anything like that. It's going into the grid and then it's used by everybody. Kind of dovetailing with Jackie's notes on our responsible approach to solar, we do try to kind of set ourselves apart from other solar developers. So if you get on YouTube, there are some pretty horrific images of, solar farms that have just scraped the site clean. Every cubic yard of topsoil has been removed, et cetera. That's not how we approach development. We try to work with the existing topography, retain as much of the native vegetation as possible, keep as much topsoil as possible. We don't manipulate existing drainage to divert, streams around our site or anything like that. We really just try to integrate our project into the environment and into the community. And as you can see, we use agricultural fencing, so we don't have 6-foot-tall chain link fences with barbed wire on top or anything like that. Pretty low impact, low intensity, and that's kind of a theme I'll mention a few times. And I know Councilman Pettit is familiar. This isn't your typical industrial development that is just going to, significantly change the landscape. And on top of that, it's not going to add a bunch of impacts to your infrastructure or demands from your public resources like fire, police. We're not going to add any students to the school district. So the physical approach, as well as our approach to impacting the community, the negative impacts are almost non-existent. The solar farm will sit there quietly and produce power. I won't say it's on autopilot, but it requires very little inputs to keep it running. Here's an example of a project that's about an hour and a half northeast in St. Joseph County. If anybody wants to tour it, let me know. We can set something up for you if you want to take a field trip. This is quite a bit larger than what we're doing here in Merrillville, so 187 megawatts compared to where we'll be here, which will probably be about under 100 megawatts. We sold that power to AEP Energy, created about 200 jobs during construction. That was a $250 million project to get that developed and constructed, so quite a bit larger than what we're doing here. Over the life of the project, it'll generate about $30 million in tax revenue. And for this particular project, we had a $3 million economic development payment to the county as part of the tax abatement agreement. Merrillville Solar, this is our project as designed currently. So let's see if my cursor works here. I don't think it does. You can see the white square in between our panel fields there. That's Polycon. We're on both sides of Colorado, as Councilman Pettit mentioned earlier. And then on the far eastern side is Clay Street. And that green line that you see there is our connection to the NIPSCO substation. That's the Green Acres substation. So that's where we're essentially plugging into the grid. We're at about 450 acres leased, and of that 450 acres, we will be developing about half of that, so 260 acres will be inside the fence. As Councilman Pettit mentioned, we got our use variance last September. Since then, we've been designing the project, a lot of engineering, a lot of value engineering going on, a lot of conversations with NIPSCO and MISO, who's the regional grid operator. And all during this time, we've been paying our landowners either quarterly or annual payments. So local landowners have been getting paid throughout the process. Gonna mention some benefits, which I've already hinted at. $100 million project cost for this project. When we did have the hearing farm included, it was $100 million at that point. The difference was the project was 30% larger. We had to reduce the project site to mollify some neighbors that did not want to see a solar farm in that area. Let's leave it at that. So we reduced the project size by 30%. Unfortunately, due to cost increases, inflation, and a bunch of other factors, the price tag is still the same. So you would think you reduce the project by 30%, you're going to save 30%. That's not the case. That's part of why we're here today. And again, in that process, landowners are getting paid for 35 years. So instead of just having a tenant farmer lease or farming it themselves, they're getting this diversified income that is essentially guaranteed for 35 years. Construction will last for about a year to 18 months and will create about 150 direct jobs. Those construction workers will be spending money in your community during that time on hotels, restaurants, et cetera. And we always try to recruit from the local labor pool, and most likely we'll have union labor for just about every trade on this project. Electrical, iron workers potentially. Who am I forgetting? Yeah, leave it at that. Long-term benefits, so again, hiring locally. Going back to what I said earlier, this is not a manufacturing project or an industrial project that's going to have a couple hundred permanent jobs. Conversely, we're not going to be putting trucks on the roadway every day. We're not going to be putting new students in schools. We're not going to be having police and EMS come to our property regularly. So we're only creating about 10 full-time jobs permanently or for the life of the project. On the flip side, we're not draining public resources. So I think I can't emphasize that enough. Our annual operating budget will be about $1 million to $1.5 million, which will primarily be spent in the region. As Jackie mentioned, we always like to join the local chambers, and in the case of Lake County, the LCEA. Our tax revenue, we've estimated at almost $1 million per year over the life of the project. And if we do apply for and are granted an abatement, it'll be from years 10 to 35 of the project's life. So potentially 25 million over the life of the project. Again, very low demand on public resources. So that's really, I would kind of qualify that as net profit for the town of Merrillville. On top of that, and not to complicate things, but about half the project is in the Mississippi TIF, and I'll leave that up to Mr. Griffin and Councilman Pettit on what that can mean, or if that means anything for the town.
Yeah, it does.
And just to kind of highlight the delta between what these landowners are paying now in total for all 450 acres, they pay about $15,000 per year in property taxes. So we're going from $15,000, which is agricultural tax rate, to about $1 million. So significant gain. I don't think I need to explain what that will mean for the town and your budget. Since we're here about tax abatement, the but-for test needs to be discussed. As I mentioned, we've got serious headwinds right now for this project. We had to reduce it by about 30%. We're still looking at the same cost to build of $100 million. And this is due to a number of factors. There's no real one cause. The demand for solar power is at an all-time high. When there's high demand and limited supply, everybody knows what happens to prices. Inflation and commodity price volatility, supply chain constraints, so just getting a hold of breakers and transformer components is a headache that I don't want to bore you with. Interconnection costs and timelines. So as I mentioned, we've been speaking with NIPSCO and MISO for probably 2 years now, 3 years, and that conversation does not seem to have an end. The cost to interconnect is significantly larger than anyone predicted. Cost of land and approvals is just part of doing business. And then, as I mentioned, the decrease in project size makes it less marketable. You get less economies of scale. So instead of 100 plus megawatts, we're going to be under 100 megawatts. So to kind of overcome this and actually get this project to the finish line, we kind of need to pull from every resource we can, and it's really, every tool in the toolbox needs to be brought to bear on this. So we've been undergoing value engineering relentlessly, making the site more efficient, making the entire system more efficient. We're negotiating and honestly more like deferring our interconnection costs. I don't think we're going to see any reduction there, but we're kind of pushing those payments out, hopefully, so that we're not looking at a $9 or $10 million hit right on the front end of the project. We're getting creative on where we buy our panels. So we had First Solar teed up to supply these panels. Now we're looking at Canadian Solar, and maybe we'll kind of, work that against each other and go with the low bidder on that one. And then the tax burden, property tax and personal property and real property tax will be about $1 million per year, and that's 75% personal property, 25% real property is our estimate. And so that's just one tool in the toolbox, but it all adds up to make this project feasible and basically provide enough margin for our investors and our capital providers to say, yes, go ahead, break ground. I know Councilman Pettit calls me regularly asking when we're going to start turning dirt, and I'm always disappointed to give you the news that it's not going to be this month or next month. So I would love to say, we're breaking ground ASAP. Where we are now, we're kind of crossing the Q2 2024, so we're negotiating offtake agreements with a couple of potential parties there. We've got state approval from the IURC. We're obviously here speaking about tax abatement right now. And following all of that, mid to early 2025, we'll apply for building permits and break ground probably in the spring of 2026. And all goes well, we'll be operational late 26, early 27. So it's a long timeline. It's not as quick as we would like, but that's the world we live in right now. So I probably don't need to explain to all of you how abatement can work, but there's a bunch of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, and we'll kind of leave that up to you all to let us know what works for the town, what you've done in the past, what makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to sort of show you where we're at and where we're heading. This is a great project in our portfolio. We really want to see it be built. Jake and I have spent a lot of time in the community, and we're really committed to seeing the project be a benefit to the community long-term. And so we want to work with you and see what opportunities or options might be available, and how we want to structure something that could work for the town and work for us. As Councilmember Pettit mentioned, my prior life, I was a city administrator, and so I definitely understand the goals of what your council hopes to do for your community, and I want to help you realize those goals. So I know that there's been abatements in the past and that there's a variety of formulas, so we'd like to sort of talk through some of those and have an understanding of what your process is and what your goals would be for that, and hopefully we can be creative together. We don't have to get into the weeds today, but this is kind of in our mind a start of a conversation, one that we hope to continue moving forward. So I think with that, we're available if there's any questions, or I don't know if City Manager Griffin or Town Manager Griffin wants to make any comments, or Angie, but we'll kind of pause there and see if there's any commentary.
Any questions?
Well, I just wanted to mention that we have been working with Jackie and Jake for quite some time now, and feel that not only will this type of development benefit our town, it will also benefit our environment. They, like Jackie had mentioned, they are looking to keep that ground, what's the word I'm looking for?
Preserved.
Preserved. And so that's the direction that the world is going in, so I think that it would be a great benefit to our town as well.
I wish to associate myself with the remarks of the Venerable Economic Development Director.
For the benefit of the new commission members, just so everyone understands the process, LightSource will submit a petition for tax incentives to Angie and Joanna. They, in turn, will give it to the Economic Development Committee, which is 3 council members, myself as chairman, 2 other council members, and I apologize, off the top of my head, I don't know my 2 council members that joined me, and then the president of the chamber and the chairman of the board of the chamber. That committee would make a recommendation to the full council. So the RDC, ladies, is not going to approve the tax abatement. The entire council will do that via resolution. And we have Tom Pittman's on Zoom. Joanna's got Tom on Zoom. My first question to either Joe or Michael, or specifically Tom, is since LightSource is leasing the property, I think we had this discussion, can we grant real tax abatements since they don't own the property? They're leasing it from the local people. Tom, did you hear me?
He's not on the Zoom right now.
He's not on the Zoom. Oh, okay, I'm
And
sorry.
Mr. President, I
Mr.
forwarded
Griffin.
that question. I forwarded that question to him. I received the language of the lease document, slightly redacted, but not, the essentials were there for him to make a determination, and I've got to call him, he said, to follow up on that, to have the conversation.
Okay.
So I'll be in a position, I regret that I can't report tonight, but because of the length of the term and the terms that make them responsible for the tax payments, it may be possible for him to opine legally that we can allow them to also apply for a real estate or a real property abatement as well.
Okay.
I did forward that information, and I've got to follow up with Mr. Pittman.
And as Jake and Jackie had mentioned, the town over the years has done several versions of tax abatement. It's kind of been at the end of last year, my term of office, and Angie and I talked about this, we really want to get back to the state statute, and Angie, that's 5, 15, 25, 35, 45, and do a straight 10-year tax abatement, correct?
That's correct.
All right, in the past, for full disclosure, the town has given out, for example, Dawn Foods out at Ameriplex. They got the first 5 years at 0, and then in the 6th year, we went 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. We have given Polycon Industries 2 tax abatements, but I think they were at the regular state rate. The Crow buildings, both in Ameriplex and Silos at Sanders Farm, they are getting the first 3 years at 0 taxes. In the 4th year, they're going to pay 12? 12.5%, and then their scale goes up. They negotiated that, but we were kind of all over the board, and Angie and I, and in fact, we did this, I think, before Karen Lauerman passed. We talked about getting back to the state standard, the state code. So that's what we would be looking at. So I guess my follow-up question, Jake, would be, if we granted you real property tax abatement, you had a 5% tax bill in the first year, what would that generate approximately?
I can't say off the top of my head, but in the first year at 5% of only real property, not personal property,
Probably, yeah, let's just use real as an example.
probably 20,000, 30,000, something like that.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
But significantly over what it's currently earning in property taxes today.
Yeah.
Correct. And really the main tax burden comes from the personal property. So of that $1 million, that's about 750,000.
Right, and there's 250 for the real estate, I think,
Correct.
based on your formula from before.
Yeah, so it's really the solar panels, all the components.
Structure, the breakers, the wiring, the
Yeah.
substation, our main power transformer, the inverters. Those are the real value items, and most of those depreciate on a 5-year depreciation scale anyway. So we sort of reach our floor pretty quickly regardless, but the 10-year formula works for us, and we have run those numbers.
Then Mr. President, with your leave, may I ask a question, please?
Sure, absolutely,
I
Michael.
just want to understand what the barriers to investment are. I think you make the but-for case pretty well. But I want to get a sense, if we treat the real estate in the, all of the things they did, by the way, so that nobody misunderstands, were all part of the statute. They didn't do anything outside the statute. The statute permitted them to do those creative tools in order to induce the investment. But what I hear the president saying is he'd like to do what had been conventional in the statute, which is the 10-year, 1/10 each year abatement. And then, I don't know if he means that also for the personal property. Did you need that to be 100% to eliminate your barrier for the personal property? Or could you also have the incremental 10-year work for that as well?
We could do the incremental 10-year for the personal property, yes,
Thank you.
yes.
If it were front-loaded on the first 5 years, as Jackie mentioned, our depreciation for our personal property is, after 5 years, it's pretty much done.
Interesting.
And so the majority of our personal property tax payments will happen, the largest personal property tax payments happen in that 5-year period.
So the relief you're looking for to get you in there is more important in the first 5 years for the personal property?
It is, and that's why that sort of tiered rate with the bulk of it in the front makes the difference. And then sort of stepping us into the full payment in years 5 through 10 gets us to where we need to be.
Right, so you are asking for a different treatment of the personal property than the real estate?
I
You could do
mean,
it over 10 years.
ideally, it would be beneficial to have both, and that would be helpful for us in our offtake agreement.
But I'm hearing 100% for the first 5 years in the personal property, is that correct?
If not 100, close to 100, so maybe increments of 5%.
First 5 years?
So you want zero, to pay 0 taxes in the first 5 years?
On the personal property only?
So the real property would still be a
Would still be the conventional
Right.
state
And we
standard?
can kind of work with you to structure it. However, we basically have kind of a number that we need to work into. And there's a number of ways we can kind of skin the cat and we can do it as an elimination of the personal property for the first X number of years and then a step up from there. And then keep the real property tax as it is, or we can do it the other way. You know, we can work with you on a number of formulas, and we're open to whatever makes the most sense for you.
Well, I will bounce this off you guys, and I'm going to speak off the cuff, and all my colleagues are going to probably cringe, especially Mr. Svetnoff. One of the things we've asked in the past, we've given out abatement to car dealers, and they've given money in a variety of different ways, especially to the firefighter equipment fund. And I think I mentioned this to you guys on Friday and in previous conversations. I personally, ladies, do not have a problem giving them 5-year zero taxes on personal property. But what I'm going to ask you, and I don't know how financially you can set this up, we're in the market for a $2.5 million aerial firefighter truck. And we have already had Crow Holdings allocate $350,000 to the town for firefighter equipment, which the chief used for the radios. Thank you. You're the public safety chair. So I don't know, Joe and Michael, if it's too much of a reach, is there a way that Lysource can participate in that equipment purchase to some degree? I actually got this idea from a colleague of ours, Michael, Steve Kill in St. John.
Yes.
When Target came in, he asked them to buy a $350,000 fire truck, and they accommodated the town of St. John. So it's always been in the back of my mind, rattling around back there with empty thoughts.
They don't cost that anymore, though, Mr. President.
They don't cost
considerably
that
more than that.
anymore, that's for
Just
sure.
like solar panels.
Yep.
So again, I don't, just so the members know, we did, quite honestly, and I took the hits, and that's what I'm paid for in an election year. It was a contentious couple of BZA hearings, was it not, Mr. Svetnoff?
We expect it every once in a while.
Yeah, so Lightsource has already shown their compassion for the community and for its citizens out there in the Panhandle, the area of 97th and Grand Boulevard. They withdrew that, and I applaud them for that. That's why I'm strongly supporting. Colorado is zoned industrial. It has really sat vacant zoned industrial besides Polycon and Modern Forge for a long, long time. And this is, as they alluded to, is not intrusive whatsoever. So a lot of this is in the Mississippi Street TIF district, which means we get 100% of that money, and we can distribute that, even though it's in the allocation area, we can distribute that. And we've got some projects coming up, including the Southside Fire Station, the Whitcomb Street corridor in Margie's area, the community center, that could really probably use this shot in the arm, I would think. Mr. Griffin, correct?
We always welcome increment, Mr. President.
So, I don't know, ladies, if you have any questions or concerns.
Councilmember, if I could ask.
Yes.
So I'm interested in the aerial fire truck contribution conversation. And so I think if we're discussing the potential for 100% abatement on personal property tax and potentially real property tax for the first 5 years, that we could potentially structure a deal where through an economic development agreement or whatever form makes sense for you, we make a contribution towards that aerial fire truck fund. And we would likely need to do that at COD for our project. So that's basically once we plug into the grid and start generating revenue. That could be potentially something that we discuss, and we would be excited to be a part of something like that.
Okay. Anyone else with questions? Michael?
Mr. President, I don't have any. I believe that the Economic Development Director spoke well about the nature of the project. I'm just admiring the professional nature of her delivery of service, and I think it's a great project, and I do think abatement is a good tool in this case. It's misnamed, as I've shared with you. We both agree on this. It sounds like it's something it's not. It's really sort of an arrested tax base addition. It slowly allows the tax base to be added instead of all at once, to allow them some breathing room, to get all the barriers to investment away. And that's really what we're supposed to be doing here, eliminating the reasonable barriers to investment to allow a positive development to occur, and then we get out of the way and let the private sector do its stuff. And And all we're doing is just saying that we're going to allow over a 10-year period, a slow addition of the new tax base, not an instant addition, but we're not getting rid of it. And technically, it doesn't affect our revenues at all. So I think it's a good project. I think the project merits the favor of the policymakers. I hope the Economic Development Committee will agree and recommend a favorable recommendation when that time comes. But we still have to have the conversation about structure and about, that we're talking about a fire truck costs $2.8 million. I don't believe you're going to get that kind of return that would support that. But if you are, we'll welcome the money. But
Yes.
we do
Contribution
want some
towards,
portion.
yes.
I will,
Contribution.
Jackie and Jake, I
Absolutely.
will
We will
tell
do
you
everything we
that
can. Yeah.
Counselor Hardaway is chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and we have, our fire chief has given us an agreement to have it built. You're going to love this. The council president has to sign it by the end of the month in order to get a discount, but the truck will not be ready for 3 to 4 years. So,
I
you guys,
completely
cash on delivery, you guys are
understand how
probably
that
going to be selling electricity before we get the fire truck,
Well,
I'm guessing. But-
We'll race you to it. How about
yeah,
that?
and I would be remiss if I did not remind you in front of my colleagues that with these incentives, we won't call them abatement, Mr. Griffin.
That sounds
These incentives are also tied to our project labor agreement, which means union contractors, wherever you can do it, or a project labor agreement.
Light Source has been good about using it out in South Bend.
Yep.
I know they've been cooperating with the Carpenters Union
Yes.
and the other trades, so I don't have any, I'm not worried about them adhering to the PLA.
Joe wears another hat too, if you
Yeah.
didn't notice. He is also the building trades attorney.
All right.
Oh,
Perfect.
busy man.
Yeah.
He is.
This might not be accurate, but I think for all of our Indiana projects have union involved,
Okay.
They have.
the majority of labor, so.
Yep.
It's kind of an assumption we make when doing business in this state, so
Okay.
not a problem.
All right, ladies, if there are no other questions, appreciate your time again. Always good to see you guys. We've had a long relationship, the two of them and I, so,
Yes.
and Angie. So yeah, we will continue to work on the incentive portion, and then I will get with Angie and Michael when everything is ready, and we'll get an Economic Development Committee meeting. It is, by the way, Margie, you are on that committee with Rhonda and I, and the two people that I mentioned, Deanne Patina and John Jordan. So we'll call an Economic Development Committee when the SB1 forms are ready, after we craft some stuff. And then, of course, as I said, Tom Pittman will prepare the resolution for the full council's consideration. So we'll
Sean,
keep this
pri-
moving.
Should we have Light Source craft the EDA, or should we craft the EDA?
For the contribution,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter, it's up to.
If you have a template or an example, we'd be happy to adapt it.
And if not, we have one that we've used elsewhere in Indiana that we could also provide. Either way is fine with
Okay.
us.
why,
Did you do one for St. Joe County?
We did.
Why don't you shoot the one for St. Joe County over to Joe,
Okay.
or Michael and Angie, and they'll get it
yeah,
to
what
Joe. And
what I'll do then is I'll circulate it between myself, Tom Pittman, bond counsel down in Indianapolis, and then Mr. Griffin.
Thank you.
And Angie as well, so we can all kind of have our eyes on the same document then.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
get going on that for sure.
All right.
We'll draft something up that suits the situation. Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? If there's nothing else, time-wise, I'm going to move on to new business.
Thank you so
And I'm going to
much.
turn this over to Angie and Michael to provide a report of the redevelopment commission for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2023. London Witty, Bob Swentz. Unfortunately, Bob is under the weather, so I'm going to have to rely on staff to pinch hit for him and inform the RDC as to what this report is about.
Okay, this is the annual report, like Councilman Pettit mentioned. Bob Swins would have been here for questions. Unfortunately, he's a little under the weather. So this report is prepared yearly, and it will be going to town council on the first town council meeting in April for a public meeting. So it needed to be presented to RDC, and if there's any questions or discussions, we could do our best to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Angie. I guess the one that I would point out to the membership that Bob has got prepared is in Exhibit A. Ladies, if you'll look, that looks like that's our debt summary, Michael and Angie, as to where we're at with different bond issues out of the Merrillville Road, Merriplex Broadway, Mississippi Broadway, and what our 23 total debt service was, and then the outstanding debt that we have in those debt services. You have it, Margie?
I don't have that, no.
You have
It's
the
not in my
RDC.
packet. I don't have anything for the redevelopment, just the town.
Did you get, everybody got
I
it?
just asked her.
Yeah, everybody got an envelope.
Here,
No, I didn't get it.
I can give her mine if you'd like. It's important for you to have this.
Okay, so what were you saying? I'm listening.
These are all the debt services that we have that he's gonna report, that Bob's
Okay.
gonna report, and the debt service we paid in 2023, and then the outstanding debt service that we have, as of December 31st.
So Mr. Swintz worked with the clerk treasurer's group. This information will be also entered into the gateway for the annual filing, and I believe that deadline is April 15th, if I didn't mention that. So he has been working with Aurelia, the bookkeeper, in regards to all the documentation and information in regards to the debt scales and such.
This is, I think, a new change in law, where you have to have these annual reports not only completed, but uploaded to Gateway. So this is a change in process or format through the state.
In
Okay.
addition to that, Mr. President, you have to act on it tonight.
We do.
The town council does not act on it, but the other add-on to the law is that they have to have an acknowledgement of it. They're not approving it, the commission is. We decided that we would have you hear it first, so that we do that also by the 15th of April. That is new in the law. But the council has to have a public meeting acknowledgement of the report. They don't have to act on it. So at your first meeting in April, we expect the council to acknowledge receipt of the favored report.
Do we need another RDC then, Michael, to adopt it, or do you want us to adopt
Mr.
it
President,
tonight?
that would be entirely up to you.
Okay, ladies, what's your pleasure for action tonight?
Go ahead.
It sounds like we can adopt it now.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Unless there are any other questions, Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uzelak, seconded by Mrs. Haynes Edwards to adopt the report of the redevelopment commission for the calendar year December 31st, 2023. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, do we need a roll call, Joe? Probably.
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Secretary, roll call?
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uzelak,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway is a yes, Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Is there any other new business, Angie?
No.
Okay, under general, or actually, we may have erred, Michael.
I was about to say, I thought you needed to take that
We're in a
up at your
workshop. Yeah,
regular
we probably
meeting.
need to add that to the agenda here at 6 o'clock.
I think you should just ratify the action at your regular meeting and you'll be okay.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
public access counselor thinks that this is a meeting anyway. There's no difference.
Okay.
Because your ordinances don't determine a work study is different from, your ordinances don't say you can't vote at work studies.
Okay.
I came from a place where we did. If you haven't said anything about it, it's okay, but I think because your past practice has been to not take votes at those meetings,
Mm-hmm.
just allow it to be taken up under new business on your regular meeting and just acknowledge the vote you had before,
Yeah.
Mr. Will that be fine, Mr.
You can
Spadafore?
ratify it, that's fine. Again, as long as you've taken some action, that's
All
the
right.
main thing we
Yep.
need to do before April 15th.
Okay. All right, if there are no other items under new business, no general orders, Angie?
Not for the workshop.
I will adjourn the workshop then. We don't really need a motion, do we, Mr. Sutnoff?
Well, to continue good practice. You
Good practices, all right.
practices.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We're adjourning a workshop. I've never done that.